Welcome back to The Nation, and it is time for our media panel. With us this morning, regular Bill Ralston, listener columnist, Irene Gardner, New Zealand television producer and director of content at New Zealand On Screen. Correct. And I guess South Africa's equivalent of Gardner's, but rugby broadcaster, commentator, Matt Pearce. Matt, nice to have you with us. Well, a few things on the board this morning. It's been a big weekend for rugby, All Blacks versus South Africa, and with the Australians being, Matt, just pathetic at present. This great rivalry is again taking on huge significance. Is it still as big in South Africa, the ABs versus the Boks, as it is here?
Quite simply, it's as big as it gets. And I think it's been an eye-opener for me, being in New Zealand this entire week in the build-up to Eden Park and realising how special the rivalry is for the All Blacks. And you also get the sense that they were perhaps a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to meet in the World Cup. The All Blacks spent the week describing the Eden Park test as the biggest test since the Rugby World Cup. And with South Africa playing the rugby that they have been, the rivalry is back again, certainly. Irene,
you're the only woman on the panel this morning. Do you get excited by the Boks and the Blacks?
I actually do. I mean, it's interesting. You know, we were our media coverage of rugby in general, but All Blacks South Africa in particular, is extensive, and you know, it's quite exhaustive. And I sometimes have people say, oh, it's a bit over the top, it's a bit much. But actually, I like it that that's part of living in a small country, that when there's something big on, the media do get behind it and it becomes a big deal in the media. I mean, as obviously with the America's Cup as well at the moment. So, no, I have no issue with it.
Well, you're not quite old enough to have listened to Winston McCarthy calling it on the wireless. You are, actually. Does it still have that magic?
Yeah, it does, and particularly All Black South African test matches are just the pinnacle, I think. You know, how do you see it in South Africa, though? Is New Zealand still as important in rugby terms, or is it now shifting to Europe more, the attention?
No, it is absolutely the most important thing. There's so much history, you know, when you think about it. For me personally, if you want to bring age into this, I was 11 years old when South Africa toured here in 1981, and we didn't have a television in our family until I was 17. But my earliest memories of rugby are climbing over the neighbour's wall at 3 in the morning to watch the 1981 series with everything that went with it as a sideshow. And I've never forgotten those moments. And coming here for the World Cup and seeing just how important rugby is to the people, we share that as countries.
Yeah, how big a threat, though, is the Heineken Cup in Europe, dragging away?
But what you're talking about is European clubs pulling out, looking at a new competition and maybe saying to the South African teams playing in our Super Rugby, come and play with us in the Northern Hemisphere.
I think from a time perspective and a travel perspective, it might make sense. But we'll have to see what, if anything, is on the table. We know SANZAR had their annual meeting in Sydney last week, and a number of proposals for Super Rugby post-2015 were tabled, and no decisions have been made. I personally think it would be really sad if we were to lose that South Africa-New Zealand link, albeit at a provincial level. One of the proposals, which is for Australia and New Zealand to play together, and I believe South Africa and Argentina before coming together for a final series, I can't see the broadcasters buying into that because it's a watered-down product.
When we talk about broadcasters, and before the show, you're talking some amazing stats on viewership. South Africans, despite the fact that soccer is very popular as well, the viewing numbers for games that you're not even involved in are huge.
They are huge, and when we do research at our SuperSport channel every year, you won't believe what comes back. They say, we want more rugby. Now, we have every possible game of rugby that you can get. We have Heineken Cup, we have French Top 14, we have the English Premiership, we have ITM Cup from New Zealand. We have everything. We've got our own universities competition, which is on a Monday night because there's no other time for it. But these are providing nurseries for provincial Super Rugby and international players. The Varsity Cup, which former Springbok captain Francois Pienaar launched 5 years ago, has already produced 5 Springboks. Just getting an opportunity to play on television and showcase their skills. So we have an enormous amount of rugby. the figures we got said that the Super Rugby final this year between the Chiefs and the Brumbies in Hamilton got more viewers in South Africa than in New Zealand and Australia combined. So
now, that is crazy. I want to segue here, though, because you have been in the country the past week, Matt. You will have noticed there's another sporting event that we're quite interested in
netball?
Here. What do you think of our madness for the America's Cup?
Don't understand it. No, to be honest, I live in Cape Town, and there is a reasonable sailing culture in the Western Cape. Down in Cape Town, we got some good wins there, and we used to have the Cape to Rio race, which I believe is being reinstituted this year. But I've tried to educate myself in the past week because I was expecting to see rugby all over the front pages, and it got a little top right-hand corner of the front page. There's just yachts everywhere.
Irene, is it ever going to assert rugby, or is this just a madness we have every few years?
I think it's a madness we have every few years, but it's quite delightful. I'm quite enjoying all the coverage of both, actually.
The TV audiences are the same, actually, for the America's Cup as they are for a rugby test. That's the most amazing thing to me.
Well, Bill, I came in Auckland Airport 7:30 on Friday morning. It's the quickest ride in a cab I have had into the inner city. There was no one on the roads. No. It has been phenomenal. And the coverage itself technically has got better and moved up a step from the Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fast-paced. You know, it's built for television. The races are 20 minutes long. You know, they move quickly, they move fast. It's not like watching paint dry in the old days with the single hulls.
However, let's take a look at this, because as much as the technology's good, you've still got to rely on the front people, Martin Tasker.
Fly past from Aotearoa.
Aotearoa. Do they not do a Maori language immersion course at TVNZ, do you think, Bill?
They do hold little courses every now and again as well, I remember from my time. But, I mean, you know, Martin is a man of a certain age, and I suspect he'll never catch up on the Maori language. But what I find...
also English originally.
The problem I do find with some of the commentary is because the racing looks like Formula One, you expect that sort of Formula One type of delivery, and they're still...
Is it Martin Brundle, the guy who does the incredibly intense Formula One commentaries?
But, I mean, these guys are pretty laid back, and back in the old single-hull days, I think, you know, that's all
you
very
could have had
gentle.
a cup of tea between tacks, couldn't you, a lot of the time,
Can I do a little bouquet as well, though, seeing we were doing a brickbat to Martin for his Māori pronunciation? The Herald's front page on Thursday, fast cat, scaredy cat, cool cat.
Yeah, and that was a great headline. I agree with you.
Exceptional front page.
Absolutely, Irene. We might have to get used to a lot more of this hype, because it looks like, you know, this time next week,
Monday,
we'll hold, Monday probably, we're going to hold the America's Cup. Yeah. Look, just interested, and of course the media look for negative stories about this. Ian Taylor came out, had a bit of a swipe at the government, certainly have a swipe at John Key for not being there. Bill?
Well, I just think that's a little pathetic. He has to run a country and actually is involved in fairly big international diplomacy at the United Nations. Well, Key's excuse is
he wants to be here to slap around the new Labour leader when he comes in the House on Tuesday. Well, sorry, I think that's lame.
Well, no, I don't think it's lame. I think, he's got a job to do, and he's doing it. And, I don't think Boat will go faster just because he's in South Africa.
Wouldn't the President of South Africa, if you were about to win an international competition, he'd be there, wouldn't he? Jacob Zuma would be all over it like a rash.
Well, maybe John Key's a rugby man.
OK, that could be... Irene?
I think he's got a country to run. I'm all right with that.
OK, all right. Well, I would have taken the free trip. Mind you, he's getting a weekend at some future date with the Queen in Balmoral, which would be fun. I'd rather watch the America's Cup. Look, finally, Justice Minister Judith Collins has turned down a Law Commission recommendation to create a single regulatory body to cover all news and current affairs organisations. The Commission also wanted unregulated forms of media, such as blogs, covered by this new authority, but that is not going to happen. Irene, is that a good thing?
I think it's okay. I think the decision did make sense. The Press Council works, the Broadcasting Standards Authority works. Leave them alone, don't fix something that isn't broken. And I think for the moment, the blog thing is okay. The whole thing with blogs is it sort of self-regulates. You know, you've got a whole lot of comments. If you say the wrong thing, you get attacked instantly. It's all dealt with in a different kind of a way than the more mainstream media. But the report, they did say they're going to keep an eye on it. I think that's fine to do that because things are moving and changing.
And Bill, I'm presuming you would think that the less power and the less size a media regulator has, the better.
Yep, absolutely. And I think you're right. You know, it ain't broke, so don't try and fix it. The blogs, the only thing about blogs is, you could try and have a regulator, but they're mad. They're madder than talkback radio, Sean, and that's hard to believe, I know. But, you know, the only way you can control them, I think, is through the force of the law. We've had defamation trials in recent months against
court.
Yep.
All right.
Contempt of court.
Thank you very much indeed, folks. Thank you to Matt, thank you to Bill, thank you to Irene.